Busted Pencils, fully leaded education talk. Here are your hosts, Dr. Tim Slekar and Dr. Johnny Lupinacci, educated educators talking education.
Welcome Friday night, man. Busted Pencils, fully leaded education talk. Educated educators talking education. TGIBP. Thank God it's Busted Pencils. Put an F on the end of that. Friday. It's Busted
Friday. It
Pencils.
is.
It is, man. Johnny Lupinacci
Still over in
I
Seattle.
see
That's
that,
right.
man. You
Yeah.
got that backdrop there, still hanging in Seattle, drinking some good coffee.
Oh,
I
yeah.
imagine,
Oh, yeah.
which is nice. Look at that. Yeah. But make sure you hide that though. Hey, the number's 855-752-4842, 855-752-4842. Jump in there. Give us a call right away. I'm going to put out the call again to Steven in Green Bay. Where you been, our friend?
Oh, my God. Always trying to get poor Steven
we want to get him before he goes to bed. And so, we're giving him the opportunity. The lines are free for Steven in Green Bay. Johnny, what a week.
What
man.
a week. I mean, we can recap it and we will tonight, but so much to follow up on. And I'm just going to start off by saying, like, I'm still reeling from excitement from last night. I mean, it's one thing when you get to hear great guests, but it's another thing when it's just a legend, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, with all the with like, all the humility that Martin, our guest last night, and for folks who are just tuning in today and didn't catch last night, go get the podcast version, get the download. Martin Atkins, drummer extraordinaire, educator, director, head man, whatever you want to call it, of the post-punk museum in Chicago, but just a gem, just a beauty.
Yeah.
I mean, and he saw a guest last night, also just an absolute icon in the music world. And so to have, his wisdom shared with us and all you listeners last night. And again, if you didn't catch the show live last night, grab the download. It was something special.
Well, I love it because Anya, before the show started, getting chimed in. She goes, I gotta admit, Anya, come on, get you on here. I gotta
right.
give the story.
Well, I'll just say, I've always called myself a punk just because that's what I got called growing up.
Because you're a punk. Yeah.
Because I'm a little bit of a punk.
You
but
are.
I don't know and haven't heard so much of like classic punk. Like you guys talk about, the Ramones and like Susie Sue, like this older stuff, and then you get into Public Image. And last night after the show, I was doing some Googling. I was like, wow, like this guy's been in some bands that are really big. My bio parents were really big 9 Inch Nails fans. I think I might be here a little bit because of 9 Inch Nails. But I put on Bono's audiobook, his memoir last night, just because it's what I'm listening to, because I'm a big U2 fan. And the man says something that rocked me to my core. He goes, one of the first arguments him and The Edge had was about whether or not Public Image, LTD's song Public Image, was going to change punk, if this was going to change sound forever, right before they started working on Boy, their first album. And I was just like, and you liked, so you were listening to what? Connections, guys. It's blowing my mind.
That's such an awesome story, though, too, to say. It's like, truly a legend. But Johnny, wrapping it back, because again, a listener sitting there right now is going, okay, so you guys had a punk rock star on your show. What's that have to do with education? Because, man, he's an educator extraordinaire. That's the reality. Punk rock is the next education, and he is the director of music business education at Millikan University and founder of the Museum of Post-Punk Industrial Music, which is an educational institution. And what a great example he gave us, though, too, of, truly what would make, he has an album cover made of sandpaper behind glass, and people are looking at it and going like, wait a minute, that's not punk. You got to understand this. So you bring that album cover out, you have people hold on it, and then Martin yanks it out of their fingers and they feel that roughness. He goes, that's what makes it punk. And that's an education, because that's a reality of saying, you know what? You can't learn unless you experience it and love it. So Martin, Great guest. We enjoyed having him. Educators Amplified. We're rocking the house. We were doing
Yeah,
over,
Wednesday always. Yep.
going over the election results. And again, say yes to MPS, the huge success that was, putting that through. Jillian Vasquez Heelig and Laura Deinhardt from Western Michigan University coming on and just giving us all of this to grow your own, everything that was there that they're doing with, the teaching shortage, and realizing that, hey, guess what? If you've got and want to put an investment towards any type of problem, and you ask the right people who actually know what they're doing, they can solve the problem. So guess what? Teacher shortage, 300 brand new students that are pursuing a teaching license at Western Michigan University because of the forward-thinking investment of the legislature and the governor in Michigan, who have said, we're going to go after this teacher shortage, and we're not going to do it by saying we're going to create alternative pathways for, a less than education credential. No, we want fully certified teachers. What we're going to do is we're going to invest, we're going to put money, we're going to create access. We're going to also challenge institutions of higher ed like Western Michigan, adopt, adapt, pivot your curriculum so that you can take these people who need a flexible schedule and they can become teachers. It was a great episode, Johnny.
It was, and I'm sorry I missed it. We get pulled in about 90 directions right now. We don't even need to get into it this week, but it has been in the headlines, and it's probably going to come back up on Busted Pencils. Is just the disarray that higher education is in, the low enrollments, which I think is all really kind of health signs. I think this is a healthy growth moment for the education world. I think schooling may become a relic of the past, and I know that's me being really optimistic about school status quo. But if we think back to a couple weeks ago, our guest Kevin Kumashiro, he said, I think we really need to be challenging what is the role of public education in the world we're in, and what do we want it to be in the world that we desire, that we dream to be better. And I think the current generation of young people who traditionally would have just gone to college are saying, hold on a second, unless this is going to contribute to the world I want to be in, I'm not so sure it's worth this $100,000 to $400,000 price tag on the other end. And you know what? So we'll come back around to it, but I had to miss that wonderful show Tuesday because we get pulled into some important meetings to figure out what do we do when there's not enough students. Well, I'll tell you one thing flippantly: stop charging them through the nose.
There you go.
And stop these high administrative salaries. We got bloat of administration across the board at so many different universities. We've had this idea of growing and growing and growing, and at what cost? Well, lower funds from public sources. So, public schools are funded at less, just like K-12. And now who bears the burden of that? Well, students, because we charge them more. So that's missed my little hot take on, I had to miss that awesome show because that's not what's happening at Western right now.
Yeah.
They have a growth in teachers that's being paid for by the state. So they're publicly funded. So this is great. But Tim, I want to come back to something because you know what? More teachers doesn't mean diddly squat unless we do something to change the place they're going to. Right. And that's what that's one of the things I'm fired up about, man. All day I've been able to walk around this great city of Seattle, check out some awesome record shops, go to some iconic places, visit some schools. And one of the things I'm reminded of is last night Martin Atkins talked to us about post-punk. And he said, punk, education is the new punk. Well, I'm almost wondering if we're not post-schooling, or if we don't need post-schooling in some way, where schools out there just say, enough with the way we used to do things. Let's DIY, let's get creative, let's be innovative, problem solving, and let's do this differently. And then I was reminded, that's what Educators Amplified talk about on Wednesday.
They do it.
Everything was firing today, all the senses. And I'm pretty stoked to talk about it. And we'll chop it up today. Don't
forget Monday, man. Monday we started the week. What would Matt Damon's mom say? Dr. Nancy Carlson Page starts off the week She's going to be here every first Monday of the month.
That was like an all-star week, huh?
Yeah, I know, right?
It was
It's
all-star
like,
week on
man.
Busted Pencils. This is getting to be a regular thing, Tim.
And we loved it though too. Is they say, was it really? Yes, it really was Matt Damon's mom. And we said though the great part about that is it's Dr. Nancy Carlson Page, educator, researcher, activist for public schools. In fact, doing her gig before Matt really became the Matt Damon we all know.
Oh, for
so
sure.
It's like, and we said, why do we ask Matt Damon's mom? Well, because first of all, we shouldn't be asking Matt Damon, except for the fact that he is an awesome advocate of public schools and a great speaker. But his mom has the cred to answer the questions when you talk about saying, should we be teaching science, which was our first introduction to Nancy Carlson Page? Should we be teaching science to 3-4-year-olds, pre-K kids? And she was like, oh my God, why would we not? Because that's when you're going to grab them. You're going to give them that because their natural excitement level is so attuned to looking at nature, looking at science. The whole experiment of being a 3-year-old and experimenting. I was thinking about this, Johnny, after the show. Most of the time when you're 3 years old, you spend most of your day trying to figure out cause and effect scenarios, right? When I push this glass off of the table, right? Will my mom get upset? Will my dad get upset? And then, boom, that's a science experiment they're conducting right there. So the reality here is you go, no, we got to wait until their cortex is developed and we got to get them developmentally ready. We can't be teaching them biological terms when they're 3 years old. Of course not. In fact, isn't that the biggest problem most of the time with almost everything we teach? We create this sense of saying, before you can do the good, juicy stuff, we have to bore you with the crappy minutia stuff to get it there. Johnny.
Well, Tim, I'm going to talk about this, and I'm only going to work now as much as I can in a post-schooling era. I'm really going to push that. But you know what? In a schooling era that we're trying to move out of, that whole idea of authority and the correct answer and the right thing being known by adults and imposed on children is part of that problem. Let young people explore. It's not anything goes. Like, don't let them walk out into a busy road, but let them wander around, in other places. Let them be free. Like, we're here to make sure that they don't do themselves or one another harm, but we're not here to impose and limit that sort of inquiry that, Dr. Nancy Carlson Page on Monday, was saying, come on, guys, let's not make science the schooling science for young people. Like, let's not take the fun and the play out of it, because that's really important. And I'd argue that's important all the way up.
That's what I was going to say. I mean, think about that. That's why I say, Johnny, it's like, that is just, you said, post-schooling, real education, doing punk, doing DIY is actually engaging in the curiosity of the content. It's Busted Pencils. It's fully leaded. Hey, we got some trending news we're going to come back to, though. Johnny and Tim chopping it up back after the break.
Yeah.
Did you get a chance to look at the school choice for the rich?
Yes.
Okay, and then I'm going to drop a surprise on you too, like I do on
Friday. Yeah, I love that.
It's actually not that hard hitting, but
hey, man, we won't bring it up tonight, but man, this stuff's getting worse and worse. Did you see I have this infograph I'll send you. I think it's 190 some university faculty killed in between Israel and Palestine right now, and 6 university presidents.
Really?
Yeah, man.
Oh man, I have
30 seconds out.
I have not seen that. And
I'll send it to you. I'll send you the infograph. Yeah. But I mean, like, we have to plan that show because we want to make sure.
Yeah, we got to be. Yeah, because that could be fraught with even just one potential saying something a little bit.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
10 seconds out.
I can't afford to be fired when I'm already fired.
Well, that's the other. that's the other thing. I'm not able to be on that train yet. I'm close. No.
Yeah. Nah, we're not dogs. But we do love to run. It's Busted Pencils, fully leaded education.
Ain't nothing
talk.
wrong with being a dog.
Nothing being a dog on the
I'm-
run, man.
That's right.
Educated educators.
I want to be a dog.
Education. There, I heard a little woof, woof, woof there.
That's right.
855
That's just the dog in me. That's just the
4842.
dog in me.
855 752 4842. Again, recap of the week. What a great week. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Yeah, Busted Pencils. That's it. Every day of the week. And what a week. And Johnny, though, breaking into the news. Oh, our friend Michael Petrilli over at the Fordham Foundation just can't seem to let things, go. And a couple weeks ago, he was, reminding us that if we just went back to the good old days of No Child Left Behind, when things were getting better, when we could test people and really know if kids were truly doing well or whether teachers were truly teaching, we need to go back to those good old days. Well, to this week, he puts out a new thing here too, where he's like school choice. And in fact, I do agree with him that school choice has been having lots of victories, but he's kind of worried that the idea of totally school choice for the rich might be a windfall, and uses a little bit of what they would say apologetics type of, an attempt to say, but maybe we should be a little bit concerned about rich people taking taxpayer money to pay for the private school that they're already in. And maybe we should pull back on that, not by saying we shouldn't do it, but by putting together what he's calling a sliding scale. And he reports that my state, where I'm in right now, Ohio, is the model example, because in Ohio, if you're making $200,000, you have to be on a sliding scale, and you don't get full voucher. You get some voucher. And he's like, that's a brilliant idea. And it's like, dude, stop it. Just stop it. That's where I'm kind of on this. It's like, it's school choice. And the fact is that if you're realizing that wealthy people who already had their kids in private school are now using this as a way to supplement, and as we've heard in places like in Florida, where a lot of these parents are just buying hot tubs, going to Disney World and stuff like that, it's like, wait a minute, man, stop it. There is no such thing as a good school choice, Johnny Lupinacci.
Yeah, Tim, this gets into the semantics for me. Wealthy people are going to do wealthy people things, send their kids to private schools. That's fine. That's a choice. That's the choice. I don't think it's, I'm going to fall back on it again. It's not the government's responsibility to provide that choice.
Mm-hmm.
There's always going to be, since the beginning of time, there's always going to be, it's the same thing when we talk about healthcare. If you've got the money, you can always go to private options. But that shouldn't mean that there aren't great options for everybody. And that's the problem right now. Is we're not calling for like a ban on private schools.
No,
that's fine. We're just saying, like, stop trying to use like public funds to make it harder on public schools. Stop trying to starve out public education. And school choice is nothing but that. It's absolutely not choice.
Right.
It's just language slapped on something that's saying, how can we decimate public schooling so that we can create it almost like a fast food industry? It would be the similar thing would be to say, how can we stop good restaurants and great grocery stores and just have fast food everywhere? And and if we were attacking grocery stores and restaurants, then that's the same thing we're doing here. And I would call that food choice bill. The food choice bill. I'm gonna make it impossible, Tim, to have a good restaurant or healthy food options at the grocery store. And instead, I'm just gonna, decimate those options and plug in McDonald's and Taco Bells everywhere I can. That's the same idea here. It's not to say that there shouldn't be private schools or, elite academies. Great. Have those. They've always been around. They're always going to be around. Stop taking money from our public schools.
Stop taking the money from us.
Stop starving us out in a post-schooling era.
Post-schooling era. I got a quote, though, Johnny. In fact, just so people understand where Michael Petrilli's coming from, quote, "No doubt the growth of educational freedom, as many advocates now call it, is a fantastic development. We take consumer choice for granted in practically every aspect of American society except K-12 education. It's long past time for schools to be subjected to the same competitive forces that almost every other organization in America is. And in our huge, diverse society, it makes sense to embrace a pluralistic school system that allows families to find educational institutions that match both their values and their hopes and their dreams for their children. Take that whole bunch of gobbledygook and put that together. And what he's essentially saying is that we need to get rid of public schools in America because, darn it, we just in our diverse society, we should have a plurality of schools that people can choose from. Like Johnny, we said you already can, because there are a plurality of private schools to choose from if you so would like one. It's not, though, then to corrupt public schools into these, quote, choices, because actually in a diverse, pluralistic society, the contribution and the commitment to democratic education is something that we say all people get, and the Commons then funds that. I know you got a head shaking there, man.
Because what you're reading, Tim, is a lot of good stuff. I mean, and that's the whole thing I want to point out here is like Petrelli is using a lot of great language to hoodwink the reader. Right? Is to say, like, shouldn't we have this in this great pluralistic society? We should have all options for all of our students to have great education. Well, yeah, of course. That is the function of a public school system. That already is a function. Is it doing great? Not everywhere. And we've talked about that. So if I'm reading that in an area where the public schools have been starved out and aren't doing so great, right, I'm thinking, okay, I'm with this guy. Like, do what we got to do because this is not working. Here's the thing, Tim. And this is what I'm going to give Petrelli the benefit of the doubt on, right? He's a free market worshiper, right? Absolutely. So he bows to the gods called free market. This is not even the same. And I'm making a corollary to religious because that's how little faith he has in democracy. And this is what it's about. It is about he believes firmly that the way for things to be good, for things to work themselves out, is to allow markets to settle things, right? But what we know about markets are controlled, they're manipulated, and they're used in ways to keep particular people benefiting at the expense and exploitation of others, right? And so this is like free market capitalism gone awry. This historically wasn't really part of schools because schools were, like L.A. Tom called in and said before, they're part of the commons, or they're part of our government function, right? And so there's been limitations put on. They're not an industry. They're a stalwart of a strong nation. And so they're democratically governed. Well, you know what? Petrelli and the boys that believe in the free market gods, they're practicing their religion of free market economics. And they're saying, no, in fact, schools can't be good unless there's competition and this idea of unlimited growth mapped onto education. So it needs to be privatized, and let's let the market settle them. But folks, what we know by and large, and I made that food analogy before, that the schools that the free market is giving us in replacement of public schools is the equivalent of just putting a pile of sawdust on a table and feeding it to us. It's not quality education, and in the cases where it is, the few cases, it's been trumpeted as, hey, this is going to be what your kid can have someday. Well, we're sitting here asking, how long do I got to eat sawdust before I can have a good meal? Because that's the reality for so many of our kids, is the privatized system has not provided good education to the masses, and public schools can and have. Let's go. It's a post-schooling era. I'm fired up. It's Friday. Let's do this.
Oh, nice, man.
All right, man. We're rolling.
Dropping some.
Hey, I put that in the chat. We talking about dogs. How about that real punk song? I Want to Be Your Dog by the Stooges.
Is that FCC cleared? Can I play that?
Yeah. This is before the first F word ever dropped on an album was the MC5 Detroit punk band.
Yeah, you would know that. Detroit.
They say at the beginning, kick out the jams, and I'll let you figure out what that means. But that's the first big like FCC break, the first cuss word recorded onto vinyl.
That's crazy. I love that.
So the Stooges, I believe that record came out before that. But yeah, I Want to Be a Dog's a clean song, man.
Okay, so L.A. Tom on Twitter put out a question saying no show.
No. We fixed it. We fixed it.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So something was wrong with the app. I don't know what, but that's what he was mentioning. And also, somehow the microphones from Green Bay were going out. So for a little bit, people were just hearing like one of our producers just ask questions about StreamYard.
Oh,
Oh
we're
my
very
gosh.
lucky, but everything is
But the
fixed now.
recording is good, right? So then when we
Oh, the
get the
recording's fine.
podcast will be crisp.
Whole different thing, yeah.
Yeah.
It's just about getting every signal to the FM, the AM,
Oh,
the
yeah.
app, and the web.
So many things, but you
So
all
many
do
things.
such a great job because it's
So many
actually
tubes
reaching.
full of cats.
It's reaching far,
Oh yeah.
I'm getting the texts every morning from people all over that's like, "Oh, I caught the show. I finally got the
Nice.
app. I listened live. That was cool." I got so many holy S, Martin Atkins. Who
Yeah.
are you guys these days? I'm like, dude. Tim has been hustling this for years, and he's got a lot of great friends in the Midwest. Let's go.
We got a lot of great, and I tell you what, I did 3 screening interviews today of future guests, and they're all great.
Awesome, man. Thanks for doing that, man. I was just, hitting the streets hard here, checking out stuff. I had both kids with me. We were having a blast.
No, I just figure like right now I'm going to take advantage of the fact that I have this time, and so lining up these people, and I've talked to 3 different, they're classroom teachers, and one's the interim dean of a college of education in New Jersey, and one we were talking today. Did you see the news about the earthquake?
Yeah, New York.
That's crazy.
We were talking on Zoom, and her computer started shaking, and she goes, "I think I'm in an earthquake right now." We literally were having a Zoom during the earthquake.
Oh my gosh.
The
She was
UN was
fine.
meeting when that happened, and they didn't stop. There's a bunch of video of people continuing to give UN testimony in New York, and just like, well, I guess we're all going to shake for a little bit.
I mean, it was crazy. She goes, do you see my camera shake? And I was like, yeah, I do. She goes, my whole building's shaking. She goes, I wonder if we're having a little earthquake. It's like, well, I think you did. It was just so calm, though. It's like, yeah, we're having a little earthquake. Hold on a minute. Okay, now let's get back to talking. Yeah, earthquake's over.
That's right.
But those kind, out there on the east, I had one too at one point. It rumbles, and you're kind of like, what? Did we just
Oh yeah.
shake a little bit? Because they're like those 4.2 on the Richter scales, where you're like, okay, something happened. I'm not sure what you'd call that though. And it's like, yeah, it was a real earthquake.
Yeah, not like these West Coast ones, man. I'll be honest with you, man. It took me a little while to not be scared when I'd come over to Seattle because I'm like, I better not be here when the big one hits.
Fall off in the ocean, man.
Yeah, no, you will, really will. That's why I always tease my kids. They say, "Why do we live so far from here? Why do we live in Spokane?" I was like, "That's gonna be oceanfront property by the time you're my age."
Speaking of Spokane, there is somebody following us on our Facebook, and I wondered if you knew her.
Oh, I'm sure.
I'm trying to find her name.
Does she leave bad messages?
No. She Brandy Cherie.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I know who she is.
Okay, because she
slightly stalkerish.
Okay.
She's great though. She's great.
All right. Yeah, she occasionally comments on our Facebook stuff.
Oh, nice.
And I clicked on it, and it was like, yeah, she's in Spokane, and I was like, okay, John, she must have a connection to Johnny.
Yeah.
10 out.
10 out. Oh, look at that. Yeah, Lupinacci, man.
Hey.
You called for it, dude.
Oh, dude, you know what?
Yeah.
If we're going to talk about the dogs, I want to be your dog classic from the Stooges.
There you go, man. There we are. And Johnny and Tim.
Yeah,
Johnny, Tim, and Anya. Not the Three Stooges, just your regular Stooges.
Fans of the Stooges, though. Fans of the Stooges, always.
Yeah, Busted Pencils. Fully leaded. 855-752-4842 is the number. Recap.
Give us a call. Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, don't we got somebody on the call?
Oh,
don't we got somebody on the line? I think we do. I think LA has been hanging in there.
Oh my goodness, I missed that. LA Tom, what's happening, our friend?
Hey guys, Happy Friday.
Happy
First
Friday.
off, we the people. We the
Always.
people ultimately are the government. We're the people that have the power to change things. And everyone, make sure you get out and register to vote and make a difference in this upcoming election. I want to give a shout out to Joanne, because I thought what she talked about the other day about when you have a high school gym or you have a playground or something like that, that maybe we ought to start putting brought to you by we the people, aka government. You know, the private sector sure seems to love to do that with football stadiums now in the high schools, brought to you by such and such tire center or whatever it might be. They're advertising themselves everywhere, and it seems to me the only people that don't advertise are the people that actually are doing the most, which is we the people. So I would just like, you know, to throw that out there. I also would like for, you know, as you guys go along here, you know, this upcoming election, truly, I mean, we can be really, really educated about it and be like, okay, this side says this side says that. But we are not in that type of thing. This is a candidate like we've never seen before. And we should definitely not be doing the both sidesism in our media. In fact, that's media malpractice, because of the fact that we have a candidate that has 89 indictments. We have a candidate that has destroyed a lot of the different institutions that we have. We have a candidate that can't tell the truth at all. We have a candidate that wants to truly be a dictator. We have a candidate that wants to get rid of democracy. And we really not need to, I know you guys will, because of the fact that you guys are intelligent people. But the thing is, we need to talk about it like this is really a threat to our democracy. And this person is a threat, not like they do on TV where they almost make him into a clown character.
Yeah.
But we really need to take the seriousness of this issue. And we really, really need to, you know, hammer that home. The last thing I'd like to say, and I know I went through this the other day, but I really am thinking about, you know, Jack and the Magic Beanstalk. I'm thinking of the emperor that has no clothes. I'm thinking of the little boy that cried wolf. I'm thinking of Little Red Riding Hood. I'm thinking of the Three Little Pigs. I'm thinking about those different nursery rhymes because they really did mean to tell us something about these certain characters that seem to come along, you know, in our lives. And, you know, there's always someone that's trying to sell the magic beans, you know, buy this, you'll have an erection till next, you know, year.
Right.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Hey, Tom, thanks for the call. Man, we love hearing from you. Tom's right on cue, and I'm glad he brings it up because, you know, here at Busted Pencils and especially on civic media, you know, the emphasis is on democracy and action, you know, and Tom bringing up popular sovereignty, reminding us almost every day. We love you, Tom. Thanks for the call and reminding us that we the people, and, you know, and he's right. I talked about earlier, the marketing gods, right? This idea of like that let markets decide our futures. Right. And that's sort of like this idea. Joanne, caller from Madison the other night, brought up like, hey, how come we're not celebrating public education? How come we're not celebrating we the people? How come we're not reminding? There's a great art campaign out there out of California called Amplifier Art. I'll share it in one of our blogs, or I'll bring it up, or maybe we'll get some of the artists on the show. But, you know, one of their biggest campaigns are we the people. Right. And that's their like poster slogan. Teachers, you can get free posters from your classrooms from it. But they're great art that tells an important battle that we're in right now for democracy. The other thing I'm really glad Tom brings up, and I'm going to stick with the theme of being a dog tonight.
Okay, dog man.
But you know what? We're in a dog fight with this election. This is not hey, that's not fair. I mean, we are like LA Tom brings it up. Like, this is a bully. This is not just a bully like a playground bully. This is a bully with a lot of power who has shown time and time again that he will break laws. He cares not to follow them. And in addition to that, he incites violence. Right. You know what? So pacifism, great. If you're a pacifist out there, like, more power to you. I myself am not a pacifist, right? Like, I'll meet you in a dog fight, right? And that's the thing. It's about this. We are not in a situation where we can say, hey, you know what? Well, the law says, and I'm not saying break the law, but I'm saying we need to stand up for our democracy, and we need to be able to say no to the bully. And so Tom is right. Like we can't just sit back and say, hey, it's really important to listen to both sides. I need everybody to sit down and be quiet. You know, this is a time where we have to say enough is enough.
Exactly.
Right. And this is the thing. I know that violence begets violence. So I'm not suggesting or condoning the act of violence, but I'm saying to stop a bully, you have to be firm. Okay. And you give no loopholes, no little area of grace to say, well, you know what? We got to hear this out. No, we absolutely do not. We want none of this, and we'll have none of this. And if we don't stand firm and united that way, then you know what? We may lose our democracy, Tim, sooner than you or I would ever have imagined it was going anywhere.
Well,
So,
I just on that though, I mean, it does. It's frightening as you're listening to it, and the reality too. Yeah, there is no both sidesism to, as we've heard from multiple guests, going like the reality is that we, as we're approaching fascism, or even potentially going like, there are some of our politicians that actually are pretty darn much about the whole idea that they're okay with fascism, right?
Well, you know what? Yeah, and censorship. It was like you can't say this is the rawness of this, and I'm not going to find a silver lining in this guy running. I won't even name him, right? Because I want to give it, but we know who we're talking about.
Yeah.
I don't want to give any credit to it, but there's no silver lining in this except for that it's raw and it's real. It's not hidden. Okay, so this isn't. Let's talk nursery rhymes like L.A. Tom talked about. We learned them. Right, this isn't the big bad wolf dressing up like a grandma. This is the big bad wolf just being a bad wolf, right? So I say, let's we see what we're dealing with. He's told us exactly what he is. His actions have spoken for it, and so let's stand up to it now.
Well, and I put out there, so I don't know, we'll take this deviation, but Johnny, I posted up, blog that I put out there today, the American Patriotic Supremacy Curriculum. Now, I kind of put this squarely back in the hands of saying, but education, are we partially to blame? And this isn't a both sidesism that Tom was talking about, but it's recognizing and going, and I've used January 6th, and there's been a lot of talk about that now because, as the candidate Trump continues to say he's going to pardon, these people, these are
the man who shall be
named.
Hey,
you know what? I don't care. Let's whatever. He's these are political prisoners.
If you say it 2 more times, he'll pop up.
Oh goodness, my goodness, no. Political prisoners. And it's like, look, on January 6th, what happened? That was an insurrection. That was and I want people to go, yeah, how did it happen? Where did it happen? I'm also, though, kind of saying it's like, how did so many people in a huge public such as America come to believe that what they were doing that day was acting out some form of American patriotism, that they were involved in this, and it's just like, well, here's where I'm going, like, because schools, and this is the counter to those people going, well, we've been teaching so much woke indoctrination. We teach people to hate America. No, we don't. No, we don't. In fact, we have a long, long, long history of actually, through the act of omission and then celebration, particularly when it comes to social studies and history, we have mostly taught people how awesome we are, how wonderful it is to be a patriot, how great it was to be a pilgrim, how awesome Columbus was. And the fact is that when people then have a really, really poor understanding of the past, and then you get a tyrant such as this man who then weaponizes the story of patriotism, and then guess what? There's what happens on January 6th. So the idea here too, and this is what you say, I'm not, particularly when it comes to a post-schooling era, where we're going to get punk about this and go like, wait a minute, I'm not apologizing for critical race theory. I'm not apologizing for teaching the truth of history. In fact, the reality is that we haven't done that nearly enough over the past God, for hundreds of years. But the reality of going, and this stuff comes home. And so you're talking about going, like they created this false kind of narrative that the American dream story has been squashed by American public schools. Nothing is further from the truth. The reality is that the sugar-coated narrative of a mythology, which I call the American patriotic supremacy curriculum, has always been fully engaged and fully going forward 100%. We need to come after that and say, like, it's time. Teaching truth in America. Howard Zinn, the realities here. Sorry, Columbus. Yes, there it was. It was something there. But no. You know, Johnny, I saw your text there. You made me nervous, like I was chopping up, or was
No, you were on a roll,
okay,
man.
Okay,
We were
I
just
was
trying to
rolling.
see-
You get me back, but no, man. American patriotic supremacy curriculum, and the reality is that American exceptionalism has been the story that we have taught generations of American students in public schools, and that story has largely been this kind of form of a patriotic, and so when you see people wearing red, white, and blue earmuffs, wearing three-pointed caps, coonskin things, and coming out, I'm talking about all the people that were dressed like, America. It's just like, no, you're not reenacting the Boston Tea Party. Sorry.
Oh, I was wondering where you were going there. I was lost.
When you saw all of the quote patriots on January 6th in their regalia, you saw a bunch of people there with the "Don't Tread on Me" flags, as if they were acting out. And I'm telling you, they're acting out a story that they heard in second grade, in fifth grade, in seventh grade, and then hearing from, and we're gonna death to tyrants. Well, okay. Then why you listening to one? Because if you had any real sense or understanding and knew the history that was a reality of what's going on, if you knew the truth, you'd recognize that you were actually under the command, under the spell, under the hypnotism of a tyrant who used a watered down story of American exceptionalism that a large portion of the people still believe is true, or if they don't believe it's true, they believe it's under attack, and nothing is further from the truth. Boy, Johnny, that took me off of the news where I was going to come at this, and I feel like
I just want to add to it. We can come back to the news off of it too. It's like, but I'm not a sympathizer. Right. And I'm a little bit of a political vigilante because I really don't feel I don't feel like core democratic values are represented very well by either party right now.
No.
So I'm not sympathizing, but I will say, as we talk about this, and I'm sort of, playing off of the theme of the week with this post-punk and then post-schooling era. But, I can't help but think, Tim, that a quote unquote success of status quo schooling has been to separate people out and to really exclude a whole lot of intelligent folks from identifying as intelligent or from being part of a community process. So I think we've done schools, and we're in that, Tim, like we're both teachers, even though we go against the grain within it, it's our company. The whole thing is the company we kept has done a really good job of disenfranchising a whole lot of folks who were ready to be misled. And they're being misled. So I'm not sympathizing with them, but I am saying, man, if I think about schooling, it has created this monstrous mess that we're in.
And don't mess me up. Don't take me as sympathising. It's just a critical.
I don't think you're a sympathizer, man. I know you're a hater of those.
Hey, man. Busted Pencils, 855-752-4842. You can join us one more time. Busted Pencils back after the break. Nice.
Yeah. You guys are funny.
Hey, occasionally you can get us rolling. So, do I water down where we were going with about half of of kindergarten to second grade students are not on track to read?
Oh no. Are we going back to that?
Well, I'm not
going to say.
That was the other news story I was going to drop on you with, and again, coming off of.
We could come back with that. Just say, well, we just got on a bender there with the whole.
Let's bring it back, because here's the real concern. Our kindergarten, first and second graders, God, who,
30 seconds.
the alarm bell's ringing again. They're just not reading, or at least according to the Dibbles test they took, which in and of itself is going, really? So nonsense words?
10 seconds.
8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yeah, they always come in there 7 School's out. Not yet, though. You got one more time. 855-752-4842. Busted Pencils, fully leaded education talk on a Friday. TGIF or TGIBP Friday.
It's
you get all these acronyms. They go backwards. They forward. I learned a new acronym, which is gonna go like, really, dude? It took you that long? FOMO. I didn't know fear. I'm sorry, I didn't know.
Right. I'm old and I laughed. Anya was already throwing up a heart symbol with her hands. How? Oh, bless your heart, Tim.
Oh my God, I know.
Bless
I'm
your
just
heart.
like, well, and I don't know. There's a whole story, but all right, Johnny, back. Got some raw. We love that. LA Tom, thanks for setting Johnny and I up there for that. Great little segment. The American Patriotic Supremacy Curriculum. My goodness. Though, Johnny, one more news story though before we end the week, because it's News Friday. Coming out of one of our favorite publications, and when I say that, it doesn't mean it's great or not great. It's just one of the ones where we grab our news. Headline: only about half of kindergarten, first, and second grade students are on track for reading. And guess what, Johnny? According to this, the data, that's DATA, that would be plural for datum. So a whole bunch of datas or dataes, or you want to call it, all of the numbers say that too many students, kindergarten, first and second grade, are at risk of failing to read proficiently by the end of third grade.
Oh, here you go with this business again.
And then literacy rates in the U.S. remain a concern, according to Dibbles. That's Dibbles. That's a test. And we got to remind people, what is Dibbles? Well, it's the dynamic indicator of basic literacy. Yeah, Dibbles. My daughter.
I leave some Dibbles in the bathroom earlier.
Yeah. Man, do you need Lysol after? Never mind. Dibbles is what they use this in the early grades, and I told the story when we had Paul Thomas on, who really was coming in about the evidence. And one of the measures in a Dibbles test is how fast can the kindergarten, first grader, and second grader read nonsense words, and how many of those nonsense words can they read within a certain time there. And then you measure those students, and then every so often, every time you do it, you're looking for them to increase their fluency, or, as I found out when my daughter was in first grade, her speed of reading nonsense grades was slow, and they were concerned that she might not be getting ready to read. And I went in and went, okay, but what happens if she's reading already? And they're like, and I don't throw any shade on the teachers for this because they were forced to do it, but it was just like, well, she's reading, but her nonsense words, she's not doing them fast enough. And I'm like, do we understand what we're talking about? Nonsense words, not real words. And she's not reading not real words fast enough, but she is reading real words and reading real books. And you're worried about her Dibbles test. So when I start to see news putting out that we need to be, as a nation, concerned about our kindergartners, first and second graders, because their Dibbles scores are not indicating that they're proficient, I'm like, oh man, here we go with the catastrophe and the failing schools narrative, and everything's horrible. And I want to bring this up again, Johnny, because there's a key word in this sentence. The data that says that they won't be able to read proficiently. we've got to define that word proficiently, because that word is used all the time, so that my neighbor thinks that kindergarten, first and second graders can't read, third grade. Proficient does not mean can't read at grade level. Proficient is truly a term that means A+, awesome, the above, way above all that. Proficient, not
It's the top 20%.
yeah,
It's something defined by the test, evaluators, the data collectors, and the data worshipers, right? The data worshipers and the market folks that we talked about earlier are they're in the same room hanging out together, because the whole way of defining that, Tim, we said about it before, it's for the general public to feel like you said it, like young people are failing, like schools are failing, like we're doomed, because proficient to you and I, Tim, at a glance, it means like, wow, if you're not proficient, you're really struggling, because you don't even know nonsense words. But this is, again, the top 20% or so folks taking this test. It doesn't even mean that the other 80% are not able to read these, or not on track, or not doing well. They're just defined as not proficient. In order to slap it in an article like that and have everybody running around saying, oh no, what do we do? And conveniently, guess who's there to say what we can do? People interested in privatizing education. They say, well, I'll tell you what, we'll try different schools, and public schools are failing. So it's manufactured failure. These young people are in every way on track. And in a post-schooling era, they and their teachers are going to focus on the things that matter the most: their health, their well-being, their creativity, the inquiry together, the problem solving together, valuing human rights, really thinking about not only dreaming about a better world, but enacting it.
How about this one, though, too,
That's
Johnny?
what's going to be happening.
Come on, this one's really important. How about in real words?
Well, here's the thing, Tim. Who's to define real words? Like, why we even care?
I was just saying,
I'm talking about a post. Call up and gripe with me if you got a beef. I told you I'm a dog. I'll have it out with you. But I just want to say, like, out there, I don't care whether you're Democrat, Republican, what you are. Stop telling children what's right and wrong.
Well,
if they're not getting hurt, they're not hurting anybody. Whether the word is real or not doesn't matter to me. Ask them questions. What does that word mean? What are all these things? Stop having one correct answer. It's at the end of the book. And guess what? Don't look at it.
But Johnny, that word, though, too, you said we got to put it out there. And the reality, though, too, here is that it is weaponized. And
that's right.
And we need publications that are putting this news out to actually be critical themselves. And this is why I call attention to this. I don't think K-12 is doing anything intentional, but printing this headline, it shouldn't be printed that way, because the reality, Johnny, you said the top 20%, that's what we're talking about. We have no idea the other students, they might all be perfectly fine. And in fact, we do know that the vast majority of kids are on track to read perfectly fine.
Tim, it's been a great week with you, man. I want to thank you and thank Anya and thank all of our listeners. Hey, catch us on Monday. We'll be back in the saddle. No shows tomorrow is Sunday. So, Tim, don't have FOMO, okay? I'll see you Monday, my guy.
All right, no FOMO, no FOMO.
Hey, that's a fun Friday show.
Oh, my
guys.
God.